Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 17, Episode 13. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, Pittsburgh just over 24 hours from playing its preseason finale on the road against the Buffalo Bills. The last chance for players to make their roster case with decisions not too far on the other side of that. Deadline Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We got a busy show today, Dave. Plenty to talk about on the Joey Porter Jr. front, updated roster predictions, and more. So, Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Friday. Even though it's not Friday, it feels like a Friday for some reason. I woke up this morning feeling like it was a Friday, but it's actually Wednesday. We got a third and final preseason game coming up on Thursday night. The Steelers are technically off today, but they're flying. It's a travel day, so I'm sure we'll get some pictures of them loading the airplane up on Steelers.com and the social media sites, but probably going to be a slow day overall. And as Mike McCarthy said prior to the Wednesday or Tuesday practice, is that, that's their really technically final day of training camp, and they're not going to really be doing much of anything until they get together. I think he said Tuesday of next week to start getting ready for the regular season opener against the Falcons. It is an interesting time frame because of the way the NFL does things now, with cut downs being on Sunday, and then you having that next bye week, off week, prep week, whatever you want to call it, in between, which speeds up the process a little bit. So needless to say, we better all get some rest here later on this evening and tonight, because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are all going to move fairly quickly. And then obviously by Monday morning, we should be able to discuss the initial 53-man roster. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to preview a little bit of the Buffalo game on Thursday night there. I think I got some rabbit holes I want to go down with Joey Porter Jr. The fourth quarterback talk continues on. We've got our updated roster predictions. 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Here we go.
Like we just need to get an 8-pound bag at some point, I think, right, Dave, with all the weight.
Just buy a 12. Just buy a 15-pound bag, and then make sure you get everything in it.
Dave, it's been a busy time on the Joey Porter Jr. front. We want to do a deep dive into that. We touched on some of it Monday, Mike McCarthy's comments, but a lot has been said and reported since. Before we do that, some housekeeping ahead of the finale. Pittsburgh making a roster move yesterday. They signed defensive back Brandon Hill to the 91-man roster, and a corresponding move the team waived, I should say, wide receiver Joaquin Davis, who had been through our training camp, had a drop in that Jets game and was pretty quiet start to finish. Hill, a Pitt product, 7th-round pick of the Texans back in 2023, has bounced around since, was with the Bears earlier this summer, so he'll try to make a last-second case for himself.
Yeah, and with the wide receiver Davis, I just double-checked yesterday to make sure that was not waived as injured. So it's just a flat-out waiving when it comes to him. So they needed evidently the extra defensive back for this final game. Going to be an uphill battle for the new defensive back there. Not a lot of time to make a case there. You have to wonder how much you'll even get to play in this game. Some other kind of housekeeping related, Mukuamu, I think we hit on this maybe in the live stream the other night, but his contract was terminated a few days ago, and he was issued an injury settlement as part of that. So we're waiting to know what the charge of that injury settlement is with him.
Just a quick nerdy rabbit hole to ask you, because I'm not 100% sure myself. Most times with the settlement, guy gets waived injured, goes to IR, gets released. Lorenzo Thompson happened to him earlier this summer. Mukuamu just was a straight release with a settlement. Is that because he was a veteran and didn't have to go through the waiver injured process?
Yes, that's why officially it's termed on the sheet as a contract termination.
Okay. And he had a right leg injury of some sort that he suffered either in the preseason opener or that first light practice after, and that was the last time that he worked for the team. So unfortunate there. Before we get into all the Porter stuff, which there's a lot to unpack there, and our roster predictions, let's talk about what's right in front of us. The game tomorrow, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, in Buffalo, the last chance for these guys to show what they can do inside a stadium before cutdowns. Mike McCarthy did not give as much clarity on the quarterback situation this time around as he has in the past. He says that they're still figuring some of that stuff out. They were going to do so after he spoke to the media on Tuesday. He did say the focus will be on the young quarterbacks playing. We think back to the pre-Jets game when he told Missy Matthews right before kickoff that he wanted his plan to be the same for the Bills game as the Jets game, meaning that Howard, Aller playing. Don't know who's going to start. Don't know if there's a chance that Rudolph or even Aaron Rodgers could play a little bit in this one. So not entirely sure the quarterback situation. And so we're a little bit more in the dark than usual for this finale.
It feels like, and I use that cautiously, we're going to see only Howard and Aller in this game. He did not come right out and say that, only that the focus will be on the young quarterback. So that's all we have to work with. I don't think either quarterback has tipped their hand. I don't even think they probably maybe knew until yesterday after practice what the plan is there. I don't know. I guess the question becomes, what should the order be if it's only Howard and Aller? And I guess a follow-up question would be, what should we read anything into it if Howard does not start and those two quarterbacks are the only two to play?
It's probably dangerous to read into the order. If Aller starts, it may just be to give a different look. McCarthy's whole training camp team has been working different combinations of people and putting them in different situations and circumstances and seeing how poorly the supporting cast for Aller just struggled against the Jets. You may want to give him a bump up with a greater unit, even though you would imagine a lot of starters may sit out of this game, would not expect DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. to play and similar names. So I wouldn't be mad. That'd be my preference if I was putting together the quarterback game plan in this one. But my focus still is mainly on just giving those guys reps and just chances and ability to bounce back from last week's issues. And I'm a little less focused on pecking order. And it sounds like the Bills are going to play limited starters too, so you're not going to see necessarily their best either. So I just want those guys to get good reps.
Agreed. I guess, I mean, ideally, would you like to see Aaron Rodgers go out there and hand the ball off a couple times? I
No,
suppose, but
no.
really, what do you have to gain out of such a thing there? Especially if he's not going to be throwing the football. I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers is making sure he gets plenty of reps during training camp and these practices since they've left Latrobe and all. So, uh yeah, I mean, I think most of the fan base is just looking forward to these two young quarterbacks playing again. I don't know. I'm 6 of one, half a dozen the other, thinking Aller should go first. But I mean, to hear the Bills on their side of things talk, yeah, I think you're going to see a bunch of second and third and fourth stringers out there most of the game. So I don't really think it matters as far as the quality of competition goes in that. So and well, like you, I don't know if there's going to be a lot. We will probably go down that rabbit hole if Aller if only the two young quarterbacks play and Aller goes first and plays the first half and Howard plays the second half. Maybe that's a conversation we'll have on Friday. But I just look forward to both those guys playing a lot in this game and playing better combined than they did in the last one.
Sure, it's more about the quality of the reps as opposed to where they're getting them, but I do see the allure and the rationale for Aller to start and play with a upper unit. Pittsburgh will definitely not see Josh Allen. Buffalo's quarterback sounds like former Steeler, who one time threw a pass. Kyle Allen will get the nod for them, and so that's the plan for Joe Brady and company. Quarterbacks aside, this game means the most to who? Who do you think has the most riding on, whether that's role or roster spot? Who needs to impress in this game, Dave?
Mm, I think a lot of these, and we're going to go through our roster predictions here in a little bit. It feels like a lot of this is sewn up as long as there's not injuries to talk about here. Is a question about who has the most to gain from a roster spot potential, or
Sure.
just
No, sure. Yeah. Most to gain or most to lose if they struggle. Like, who are the guys that need to really impress to cement and lock up either their role or a roster spot?
I think you look at a couple of draft picks here. I think you look at Rubio, Robert Spears Jennings. I think the focus needs to be on those two guys because I think they, while both I have both inside the bubble right now, thus making the 53-man roster. I think it's close. Talked about Dean Lowry representing himself well, maybe pushing Rubio out of his spot. And then you got Rayshon Jenkins, who I think has represented himself well and is pushing Robert Spears Jennings. So I think those two really should have more of the spotlight on them in this game. Look, I mean, it feels like Roman Wilson's destined to make this roster, but boy, it sure would be nice to see a, a 5-catch, 85-yard game and a touchdown and no drops and precise running. So I don't want to say that it's imperative. It's a make or break preseason game for Roman Wilson. I think I'll leave it at those two draft picks here in Rubio and Robert Spears Jennings.
I'll mention another in Caden Weegan. I'm still of the belief he's going to make this team, but he better not have any of the ball security issues that he encountered and negatively had against the Jets. That better not follow him to Buffalo because you have bad ball security in one game. Okay, maybe you can sit there and say learning experience. You do it in back-to-back games. It's a really bad note to go out on, especially as Max Hurlman offers a similar skill set and has had a really nice summer from start to finish. And so that's a guy that, that is counted on as a returner, and ball security is job security, and the margin for error there is very thin. And I'm still excited and hopeful for Weegan, and I thought he had a really good final punt return. That could have been a really big play had Pittsburgh blocked it up just a little bit better, but that's a guy that cannot afford to have similar mistakes.
All right. As far as the rest of the roster goes, man, it certainly feels kind of cut at this point.
We'll talk about a roster prediction, and do you want to do that now, or do you want to do the
No,
Porter stuff first?
First, run through the guys that the health of the team, and then after we run through the guys that the health of the team, let's get into the Porter stuff.
Yeah, health is still tough to gauge with concrete confidence because there is no injury report, and McCarthy does not offer a lot of information there. It certainly sounds like Maxi Honachor is tracking to play and make his NFL debut in the finale, which is certainly welcome news. He told reporters that was the plan. McCarthy has not officially confirmed that as such, but that seems to be the expectation. I'm sure Pittsburgh is itching to get him on the field to get some evaluation of him in stadium action before the season begins. Still think it'll have to be a really great performance for him to start week one, overtake Dylan Cook, but not going to discount that possibility entirely. Elsewhere, Jennings Dunker, don't know his status. He was back in pads for practice, but don't know how much he participated. Dylan Everett, haven't heard much on him. I'm going to assume he's not going to play in this game. Deshaun Elliott returned to practice after missing the initial practice, so that was good after his in-stadium action return. I know Peyton Wilson apparently got dinged. Brooke Pryor mentioning that he had not practiced yesterday, and I think Sebastian Castro, unfortunately, was spotted in a boot by Mike DeFabo, tweeting that out. And so his status for this game seems murky.
Yeah, Sebastian Joseph Day, we don't know really what's going to happen with him either. Has not played in the first two preseason games. Would like to see him get out there and get some snaps, if at all possible. Trying to think who I think Dalen Everett did at least return to practice yesterday.
Did he?
Yeah, I think we're just still going to have to wait to see if he's healthy enough. Elliott was a little bit sore, and Brisker. What's going to happen with Brisker is another one that we're unsure. So a lot of these, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get answers to until probably about 30, 45 minutes before the game, whether or not some of these guys are in pads or not.
Right. It's just always tough to gauge a real accurate picture of health of a team now the camp is over and now that there is no official injury report until the season gets started. All right, Dave, let's dive into the Porter situation. I know on the Monday show, we had waited until Mike McCarthy spoke when he had used the infamous word impasse to describe the situation between the team and Joey Porter Jr., who remains on PUP, remains without a contract extension. It only got more interesting from there the rest of Monday, Dave. Shortly after McCarthy spoke, Jalen Ramsey, fresh off PUP, spoke to the media and was firmly in Porter's corner and said the Steelers need to pay Joey Porter Jr. and get the whole secondary out on the field and get those guys working together. Later in the day, NFL Network on the Insider Show, Ian Rappaport reporting that Porter expects to be the highest paid corner whenever he does sign a contract. Mike Garafolo noting that Steelers have yet to even offer Joey Porter Jr. a contract, and following that up the next day by saying the Steelers want Porter to be on the field first before they kickstart, and that's his word, kickstart negotiations. So that's a lot there on a 24-hour span, from McCarthy's comments to Ramsey's comments to what Rappaport said to what Garafolo said. It's getting pretty loud on the Porter front, Dave.
All right. I don't. We could spend 35 to 40 minutes talking about the Garofalo and Ian Rappaport stuff, and then obviously Mike McCarthy, and so in so many words plus some more words, indicated he did what we all knew. This is contractual. This is business that is holding things up at this point. The rabbit hole. Where's my can of worms at here?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Dave's a dangerous man with a can of worms and a rabbit hole.
Where's my can opener at here? And I mentioned at the top of the show, Sunday is an interesting day, right? Because you have to come out of your last preseason game, turn around, and by the way, regardless of whatever might happen with Joey Porter Jr. today, Joey Porter Jr. is not playing in this preseason finale. We can agree on that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Now Sunday, this team needs to get a 53 and at least an initial 53-man roster at this point. Joey Porter Jr. is on what list right now, Alex?
This is classic Dave maneuvering, leading me to water. He's on the active PUP list, Dave.
All right. By 6:00 on Sunday, the Steelers need to decide whether or not to remove Joey Porter Jr. from the active PUP and to the active roster, or move him to the reserve PUP list. If Joey Porter Jr. is moved to the reserve PUP list on Sunday by 6:00, he has to miss the first 4 games of the season at a minimum, right?
Yes, he can practice. They changed the rule. He can come back and practice after, I believe, the first 2 weeks, but he's out the first 4 games. I think,
right.
and it's games, not weeks, even though Pittsburgh does not have a bye until, I think, later.
Right. All right. So if anything, here's one and of course, we're the only ones talking about this. I put this out on Twitter yesterday to make sure I got ahead of it here. We're the only ones talking about this. And now let's, if you want to parlay in, the potential of a trade or whatnot, the next few days by Sunday is going to be very significant, at least in the short term, when it comes to Joey Porter Jr. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if the Steelers are wanting, or even considering trading and getting calls about Joey Porter Jr., you would think that he would be a deal for him would happen by Sunday at 6:00. If the plan is to not remove him from reserve PUP, because the fact is that if he gets moved to reserve PUP on Sunday, now there is some discrepancy in this. Can a player on reserve PUP be traded or not? I've searched and searched and searched. Now I know there's old bylaws that say players on reserve PUP cannot be traded. And then you go back to, I think, the Jonathan Taylor situation. I know some insiders were asked about that. They seem to think that a player on reserve PUP can be traded, but only the stipulation that if you're acquiring a player on reserve PUP, he still must miss the allotted time. I don't know if there's a lot of teams out there that would trade for Joey Porter Jr. with him on the reserve PUP, and thus they're trading for a player that's going to miss the first 4 games of the season. So it's a very interesting situation when it comes up between now and Sunday. That's the first line in the sand, so to speak, with Joey Porter Jr. Now, if this team activates Joey Porter Jr. from the PUP, from the active PUP list before 6 o'clock on Sunday, one would think that there's either he's going to sign an extension or he's going to be traded. The other possibility, obviously, is Joey Porter Jr. playing under his contract at $4 million, almost $4 million for 2026. But I just, it still needs to be considered as a scenario. I guess what I'm getting to here is surely the Steelers, if they can't reach a contract extension with him between now and 6 o'clock on Sunday, surely they won't leave him on reserve PUP, right?
That's not my expectation. I never like to guarantee things, but I would be under the belief that he'll be activated off active PUP and placed on, or just now be part of the 53-man roster come initial roster setting. But I would just say, assuming that he is activated off of active PUP, I don't think that tells us a whole lot about what's going to happen next because any possibility is still on the table.
In other words, I think Sunday, and we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, so I apologize if this chops up here. But Sunday becomes a big day. If indeed he is activated from active PUP, that gives you obviously more time to work out an extension with him or a trade. So I think that's important there. But we're the only ones talking about this. I just want to throw that out there as a scenario. And boy, wouldn't that mess up a lot of 53-man roster predictions if Joey Porter Jr. is moved to the reserve PUP list. And as you stated, it how much more clarity would it give us if he is just merely activated off of active PUP at that point? I mean, all it does is just lengthen the window between then and the start of the regular season. So I just wanted to throw that out there because until he's removed from active PUP, he's still on PUP, but the deadline to remove him from active PUP is Sunday there. So I guess I go back to the question. Surely this team wouldn't just move him to reserve PUP.
You wouldn't think, but you never know. And it certainly would be a story if he is. And Pittsburgh, I think, likes the cornerback depth behind. And Asante Samuel Jr. has played well, but that certainly would be maybe a contentious point if Pittsburgh leaves him or moves him to reserve PUP and knocks him out for at least the first month. Now, if he is activated and is on the 53, will he practice on, I guess, Tuesday when the team returns and begins practicing again? Or will the back injury still be the back injury, quote unquote, and he'll still be sitting out? We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but my assumption is they'll activate him just for the mere fact they don't want him to be guaranteed to miss the first month, but all options are on the table in terms of a trade, in terms of an extension, or just status quo, nothing happening.
All right. How much of an option, in other words, if he is activated, would you expect either a new deal to come out almost immediately or potentially a trade? Because look, if you're another team too, and you're getting ready for the season at this point, are you going to wait all the way up until closer to the start of the regular season to trade for Joey Porter Jr.? I mean, you're probably going to want him in your building for this ramp up week. And look, obviously they'd have to get an extension done with him talked out with the Steelers, like that, because nobody's going to trade for him with him not being signed to a contract extension at that point. So it feels like if there's any chance of Joey Porter Jr. getting traded, you would think it would probably be not necessarily by Sunday, but not too long after that because teams got to get ready for the season, right?
Yeah, I just would not take anything Sunday being indicative of something being imminent. I think they just want him to be eligible for week one because you never know what could happen. An extension talk that they could pick up quickly. So I would just pump the brakes on any of the trade stuff, and I would not take that him being activated off of PUP as a sign that anything is necessarily imminent or about to happen.
All right, but we do agree by Sunday is a key day of whether or not he gets activated from active
Sure,
PUP.
sure. There's a decision to be made on Joey Porter Jr., and that's always interesting just given the scope of it all. So broadening out and looking at the Rappaport report, Garofalo report, were you surprised to hear Pittsburgh apparently has yet to even offer a contract offer to Joey Porter Jr.?
Yeah, the way it was phrased by Garofalo, I was kind of surprised at the wording that he used.
How so?
I mean, I would have thought there would have been some offers exchanged back and forth by this point,
Yeah.
unless they just know that the two sides. But look, there has to be there's had to be some conversation about, hey, where are you at? What are you thinking? Maybe not official offers, but where's your head at? And look, we would be lying to ourselves if we know exactly how the process goes. But I mean, you get glimpses into hard knocks and some of these behind the scenes conversations and all like that. Maybe the Steelers are just determined to say, look, we until his agent comes to us and says, look, we know you're not going to pay top dollar. This is kind of what we want. And then the Steelers kind of go from it. I just find the wording that Garofalo used to be a bit surprising.
Sure, I thought so too. Now, to your point, just because an offer has not been made does not mean that there can still be talks without an offer. There can still be some conversation about the framework of a deal without an official offer being presented. But Garofalo says, and it is implying very heavily, that the reason why no offer has been made is they want Porter to be on the field first. And so, it's a chicken or egg kind of thing. Porter does not want to be on the field until he has a contract to prevent a risk of injury that could fall through a life-changing amount of money, and Pittsburgh apparently wants him on the field either to show his health or to, I think more likely, show himself in this new system and scheme, and maybe a bit of show of good faith as well. And I look at the Christian Gonzalez situation with New England. He missed a bit of time that was speculated to be contractually related, but he's been practicing, generally speaking, throughout the summer, and that's a guy in a similar boat as Porter in a tough negotiation, wanting to be the highest paid corner and get a really good contract. So I wonder if the Steelers are looking at it and saying, Gonzalez is practicing. Porter, why aren't you?
All right, let me read exactly what Mike Garofalo said the other day. He said, I would not put this on Mike McCarthy because this is the business side of things, but that word impasse, I'm telling you, is probably going to register with Joey Porter Jr., who's going to sit there and say, you guys haven't made an offer, and that's my understand. Okay, quote unquote, you guys haven't made an offer, end quote. And that's my understanding, by the way. I've talked to sources familiar with the progress of talks. There hasn't been an offer from the Steelers, and they say probably, quote, we want to see him on the field first, end quote. Well, if you're Joey Porter Jr., you didn't have to see Nick Herbig on the field before you got him done back in the spring. Remember, he wasn't participating in the offseason workouts before they did a 4-year, $100 million deal with the linebacker there. So impasse is usually, hey, we both made a run at it and we just haven't been able to get a deal done. Doesn't seem like the Steelers financially have made a run at it at this point. It's more of a standoff. So I just wonder where this is going to go because obviously the Steelers don't like to do this stuff during the season, and Porter Jr. is going to want it done before he sets foot on the field. So kind of as you kind of mentioned, it seems like potentially, according to reports, this is a catch-22.
Right, because Porter, and I understand it, and most players are in that position, don't want to get on the practice field until that deal is done. It happened to TJ Watt. Cam Hayward had a don't call a hold in kind of situation last year. So it's a common approach. Usually it's not through the PUP mechanism where a guy pulls up in the conditioning mobility test the way that Porter did, but I certainly understand Porter's perspective.
All right. I do as well. Ian Rappaport on Joey Porter Jr. A couple of days ago says the Steelers do not do contracts during the season. That has been their historic stance, and I expect that to continue. And really, the reason that they're in an impasse, or whatever you would call it, is because it's pretty clear when Joey Porter Jr. This is an interesting choice of words by Ian Rappaport. He says, it's because it's pretty clear when Joey Porter Jr. gets a new contract, he is going to be the highest paid corner in the NFL. The Steelers, if they're not willing to make him the highest paid corner, probably haven't offered for that reason, which is why we are here, basically where we are now. And of course, what's going to happen, he's a big name. There have been rumors. There have been, I would say, trade chatter around the NFL surrounding Joey Porter. Teams wondering, is he available? And look, we do see guys from time to time like this get traded right before the season. If you can't get a contract done, teams will call and say, how about this player? And look, he is a great player. These kinds of players generally get traded for first round picks or premium draft picks. If that is going to happen, that's what I would expect. At this point, it pretty much up in the air where this heads. The Steelers can answer all this with a big contract. Just doesn't seem like they are there yet. So we're going to keep watching whichever way this goes.
Yeah, it's the fact that Rappaport says it so clearly about Porter becoming the highest paid corner is interesting. That's clearly coming from the Porter camp. It's obviously not coming from the team side, but my interpretation is the Porter's camp is dead set on reaching that mark of being the highest paid corner in new money average, and they're not going to take anything below that. And of course, if Gonzalez gets paid before Porter, that bar raises, I'm sure, even higher. So that's where I think things get pretty interesting.
All right. And look, as we've talked several times, I don't want to keep rehashing it, but just because you technically the highest paid at a position from an average yearly, from a new money average standpoint, doesn't mean that your guarantees or your cash flow early in the deal maybe matches up to the guys ahead or behind you, at that point. So this is quite interesting. Using the term highest paid corner can be a bit deceiving, especially when you get into the finer details of whatever contract is signed there. So this all has kind of look, I thought this would have been done a while ago, right? It obviously hasn't, and now we're at a point where we've at least are short term looking towards Sunday and then moving forward from there. I think it is quite interesting that Rappaport says that whenever he signs a new contract, he's going to be the highest paid corner in the NFL. That feels like a fairly definitive statement, at least on Ian Rappaport's part there, saying then you have what feels like a pretty definite report from Mike Garafolo saying they haven't even offered him a deal. And look, here's the thing. Joey Porter Jr.'s not going anywhere. I always go back to what Kevin Colbert used to say. We decide whether or not the player stays or leaves, right? And that's essentially the case here. They've got the franchise tag next year at their disposal. Obviously, they sort of have the PUP situation here at their disposal right now as well too, and not that they would act on it, but I mean you can use it as a threat that hey, if you don't get anything done, you decide that you're not going to be out there on the practice field. If we remove you from active PUP, we'll just leave you on reserve PUP, and your contract will toll. And then what will that get you? So the Steelers have a lot of leverage here when it comes to Porter. Now, the only other thing I think that could potentially come out of this, maybe in the next few days, is we get the report Joey Porter demands to be traded.
Yeah, again, I just want to pump the brakes on a lot of the trade talk. I understand why it's out there. No reports yet of teams calling, no reports of Pittsburgh shopping. I want to take it by Sunday, see what the posture is there, and then Tuesday's practice and sort of take it step by step. But would Pittsburgh make Porter the highest paid corner? I don't get that sense even without getting into the nitty gritty of the details. But Omar Khan has, I think, beat or paid more from a new money average value to Herbig and to Ben. Now, those contracts, the structure certainly were more favorable to Pittsburgh than what the new money average may show, especially on the Benton deal. So I just say that to say that, I think Khan's been willing to have a deal that looks pretty large and has the player in good standing in the new money average standpoint, but it has to be structured really team friendly. So I wonder, could that happen again with Porter? It could, but I don't think Porter wants to take a deal that doesn't have a lot of that good guaranteed money if he's going to be the highest paid corner in football from a new money average standpoint.
And look, if he's not, let's say, the top three, in new money average come time to sign the deal, it's hard to imagine the Steelers fully guaranteeing money past 2026. Now, there might be injury guarantees in there, much like the case with Herbig and Benton in the first technically new years of their deals and all, but fully guaranteed is fully guaranteed when push comes to shove here. So do you think, since the Garofalo and Rappaport reports surfaced a few days ago, do you think there's been any movement within that?
In terms of a contract?
Yeah.
I don't have really any evidence either way, but I assume not much. It sounds like talks are at the impasse McCarthy referred to.
All right. Would you deem Sunday as the first kind of line in the sand of deadline Spurs action?
Well, I mean, it's a line in the sand, and Pittsburgh has a decision to make to either move and transfer Porter to reserve PUP or activate him and put him on your roster. So it does not necessarily get you closer to a contract, but it does create a little bit of clarity about week one. Sure.
All right. All right. I just wanted to make the point here that a lot of people are not talking about, the first line in the sand here being Sunday, and that is obviously him being removed from active PUP and thus not put on reserve PUP.
Right. And to my point, assuming that he is activated, what is the next step? Does he practice? Does the hold-in become official? Does he sit there and say, well, my back still hurts, so you can activate me off PUP, but I'm still not healthy enough to practice? And then you kind of take it from there. So it does get interesting. My overall takeaway from all of this is, and there's a lot to wade through, a lot that we've talked about, is Pittsburgh does not like it getting so loud in these contract talks. They have to keep things internal, in-house. They don't do a whole lot of the leaking, and I think a lot of stuff we're hearing is coming from the Porter side of things. And so they're just in the uncomfortable position of now having a pretty loud national attention situation. The situation was not getting a lot of public looks earlier this summer, earlier this month, because of Witherspoon and Gonzalez. Now Porter's at the forefront of it all. Pittsburgh does not like that. So that's just interesting. Ramsey's words are not going to make the team cry uncle and pay Porter, but it just gets pretty loud when some of your team leaders, your vets, are saying that. And as we talked about in the live stream, Ramsey's a guy that has been in this situation before. You kind of wonder what he's saying to Porter right now. Ramsey's a guy that's had the mindset of pay me or trade me, and both have happened in his career. So you wonder what those two guys are talking about.
Yeah, you do. You do indeed wonder about that. What percentage at this point would you put on the Steelers potentially trading Joey Porter Jr. before week one?
It's still really low. I mean, it's not zero. Nothing can be zero in a situation that's getting, I think, fairly contentious like this. I mean, I don't know exactly what that number is going to be, 10% or so. I don't think Pittsburgh still has a desire to trade Joey Porter Jr. and trade away a piece for a team trying to win now, for a team that probably would franchise tag Porter after this year. It's not the same as Pickens, because they knew they weren't going to extend Pickens, they knew they weren't going to tag Pickens, and so he was going to leave after the year. It's a different conversation, I think, with Joey Porter Jr. So it's still low, but it's not zero.
All right. Is it 20% chance?
Well, like I said the number 10% is the number I'm sitting at right now. Where are you
I would put it about between 20 and 25%, and I would have never thought I would be even off of zero a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Now, again, it's still zero reporting that any team has even called. And in fact, the reporting has been the opposite, that Pittsburgh has received zero calls on Porter. They've shown zero interest in shopping him. So a lot of the trade talk is just media scuttlebutt right now, or some teams wondering from the sidelines, as we've mentioned with the Jordan Schultz report. So could that, of course, change the further along we go into August and into September without a deal? The more likely there is the teams will call and just check in and say, hey, what's going on? Is this guy potentially available? That's natural, but we are not at that point yet.
All right. Okay, I think we have beat that up from multiple angles, including one that nobody's talking about with the Sunday decision on the PUP list.
Yeah, I think Sunday will be very interesting, and if he does get moved to reserve PUP, then it really, I think, that's probably more interesting than the fact
Mhm.
if he is activated and is
That's
put
why
on
I
the
brought it
roster.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good point there, and that'd be certainly a fly in the ointment to all of our roster predictions. Speaking of which, great segue, Alex. Let's go to our roster predictions. Dave, you published yours today. I published mine a couple days ago, and so we only have one more left after this, one more roster prediction to go. So this thing's pretty close to being our final edition, but still plenty can change with one game to play and final thoughts to think about. So at quarterback, Dave, I see that you've written here, you've come over to the dark side after being on the 3 quarterback train for this entire process. You now have 4 quarterbacks, all 4 being kept of Rodgers, Rudolph, Howard, and Aller.
Uncle, I'm screaming, Uncle, I surrender. I'm finally coming over to the dark side. While I don't like the idea of keeping 4 quarterbacks, my job is to predict, not decide. It certainly seems like Mike McCarthy is set on keeping all 4 quarterbacks and give up an extra roster spot in the process. The idea that this team could essentially go all season with 4 quarterbacks on its 53-man roster absolutely blows my mind. But the way the tea leaves have been going, I thought Mike McCarthy really had something interesting to say yesterday when asked about continued question. He was asked along the lines of, if you guys keep 4 quarterbacks, would that hinder their development through the season, trying to get those guys reps? He says, I don't think it hinders at all. We talked extensively about the importance of the whole quarterback room. If you have 4 quarterbacks in that room, especially the quality that we have currently, I think it only enhances what the regular season would look like. I think maybe you're referring to reps at practice, but yes, I mean, we're not on a time restraint once the season starts, thank God. So we can be able to do more before practice or after practice so our quarterback school component can kick up some. I'd have 6 quarterbacks in the building if it worked. I think that would be very healthy for the overall quarterback room with 4 quarterbacks. You could whittle all he said down to that last sentence there. I think that would be very healthy for the overall quarterback room with 4 quarterbacks. And then if you take into the account for the rest of what he says, it really feels like he's already moved past this and is starting to plan for what his practices and all will look like with 4 quarterbacks. Uh, that sort of kicked me over the edge there.
Yeah, could this be misdirection and McCarthy just trying to sell the idea? Maybe, but just based on the available evidence, based on your best 53, based on the way he's talked about Rudolph, but the way that you hire this guy to mold and develop and work with young quarterbacks, all of that still tells me they're going to keep 4 to start the year.
All right, so you have 4 as well too. I guess the pushback with that would be, well, maybe Mike McCarthy's convinced that they waive Will Howard and he clears waivers and they get him to the practice squad and he still has his 4 quarterbacks.
Sure, that's a possibility too. So I want to see how Howard looks and puts an exclamation point on his work in tomorrow's game in whatever capacity that comes, starting, backup, first half, second half, we'll see. But one last chance for Howard to state his case.
All right, so we both have 4.
Running back, we have a difference here. Our rosters are mostly aligned, but there is a change here. And to be up front and clear on my end, I've now shifted to this is what I think the roster will look like come 6 p.m. Sunday when cutdowns happen, not necessarily what it will look like come the Saturday, September 12th, right before the Falcons game. So I only have 3 running backs, and that includes Riley Nowakowski as a running back. So I have Jalen Warren, Rico Dowdle, and Riley Nowakowski. You have Warren, Dowdle, and Travis Homer. You have Nowakowski with the tight ends. And my rationale here is Pittsburgh's going to play the yo-yo game or the practice squad game with Travis Homer to help be heavy at quarterback and get other younger guys on the roster, play the yo-yo game with Travis Homer. Or you cut him. He's not subject to waivers. He's a veteran. He signed a veteran benefit contract. There was no signing bonus with him. And so put him on the practice squad, elevate him before the Falcons game. There's your third running back. So they'll have 3 running backs for the Falcons game, but we've seen this move many times before. Teams using the flexibility of their roster, cut the vet to keep these young guys around.
All right. So, in other words, you're creating yet another inactive on your inactive list
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Yep.
I understand your reasoning. I just don't think they go. I don't think they do that. I think they keep Travis Homer. He's a 4-down player for you.
Is he? What offensive value does Travis Homer give you?
I mean, in a pinch, he can. I mean, obviously, you don't want to get in a situation where Travis Homer's having to tote the rock any or play many, if any, offensive snaps. But he can give you the ability to do it. He hasn't done it a lot during his career, but he's obviously done it more than a Caleb. And I think the real value there is the special teams. This is a guy that seems to be part of core special teams, and thus I get what you're trying to do there. I just don't think they do that. I just think they keep Travis Homer on to 53 and move forward from there.
Yeah, this could apply to a lot of other veterans too, but they play this yo-yo game basically every year with guys that they cut, veterans they cut and then bring back or elevate or do something after the fact. So, I mean, for me, it came down to Homer or Spears Jennings just to get my thought process and why waive the rookie that's subject to waivers. Then you can just cut the veteran that you can definitely guarantee that he's going to be on your practice squad and sign him back and elevate him that way.
Mine basically, I guess you could say, came down between Travis Homer and Rayshawn Jenkins, and I think Rayshawn Jenkins is a guy that you could potentially get to the practice squad, and if you needed to elevate him, you could elevate him.
Yeah, you could use the same mechanism there, but that's my thought. I think that they could surprise. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it this way with Travis Homer, but the same could apply to even a Robert Tonyan or a Rayshawn Jenkins. So that's my thought process there. At receiver, keeping 6. We're both keeping the same 6 of Metcalf, Pittman, Wilson, Bernard, Skoranek, and Weejan, but there's been a little more scrutiny on, I think, Wilson and Weejan, Dave.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about Weejan than you are at this point. Sure, there are concerns with the ball security and all like that, but I just think the fact that, fourth rounder, I think they keep him. I think I'm not saying he's guaranteed safe for the entire season, but I think they'll buy him enough time through the first 4 games of the season at a minimum there. So I'm less concerned about Weejan. I do kind of wonder what's going on with Roman Wilson. If I was Omar Khan, personally, I would be looking high and low for an upgrade over Roman Wilson.
Whatever it's worth, Mark Cabali said he spoke with somebody part of the Steelers organization at practice and said those interceptions from Will Howard were not primarily on Roman Wilson, were not his fault. So we'll never know exactly how to divvy up the blame. There's still some concerns with Wilson beyond that, but I think he is going to make at least the initial 53. I understand on Weejan, a 4th-round pick getting cut is very rare. Has not happened in Pittsburgh since Durant Grant over a decade ago, but what if he fumbles and turns the ball over on a punt return against the Bills, Dave?
Sure, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I'm not gonna go into the hypothetical on that, but obviously you want to see him have better ball security in this final preseason game.
Right. My viewpoint is he's going to make the 53 so long as that he can avoid those mistakes against Buffalo. But if he continues to make those mistakes, then I think the noise gets pretty loud on Caden Weejan. At tight end, keeping the same 3, Freiermuth, Washington, and Tonyan.
And then I've got I combine tight ends and fullback, so I've got Nowakowski in that group there. And,
right.
But I mean, I think we're the same overall. All 4 of those guys, at least where I'm at right now, make it.
Offensive line, we have the same 9 with Fautanu, Cookie, Hunnichor, Broderick Jones. At tackle, interior linemen, Frazier, McCormick, Anderson, Hoffman, and Jennings Dunker. Is there any question here, Broderick Jones? Any thought about his 53-man roster value and role?
It doesn't sound like it. I thought it was interesting to hear Broderick talk yesterday about the trials and tribulations of switching sides and going back to the right side. I think that's just something he's going to have to work out between now and week 1. It doesn't feel like he has much of any trade value right now. He obviously is still trying to work his way back from from all the downtime that he had. You got a couple more weeks for that to happen there. Hopefully, we'll be able to see both Maxianichor and Jennings Dunker hit the field on Thursday night against Buffalo. Hopefully, there's no more further injuries going on with that group. I think Ryan McCollum is the odd man out here. I think the biggest question, if indeed this is the 9, it comes down to, and if indeed Maxianichor does not do enough to kick that door in, as you say, to become the starting right tackle for week 1, who is the odd man out on the inactive list of this 9 in week 1? I think it's easy to point to maybe Jennings Dunker, but when you look at your interior spots, that would leave you with McCormick, Anderson, or let's just move past the starters. We expect your 2 guards to be Anderson and McCormick, and then you would expect Brock Hoffman to be your swing. Would it benefit you to have Jennings Dunker at least in uniform and active because of the fact that he plays inside, whereas you have yourself kind of covered on as far as swing tackle goes. I think it's 6-1, half a dozen of the other there. But long story short, I have the same 9.
Yeah, I think Dunker's going to be inactive. I mean, if you go with an inactive tackle of Ihanacho or Broderick Jones, you feel like 2 injuries are going to put you in a bind. But that's true of any team if you have 2 injuries there. So I think Dunker's going to. He's only played basically one spot this year. He's a rookie. Some injuries and just lack of development. So yeah, I think he's going to be inactive. But those should be the 9. I think an injury would have to happen for anybody else to join this group. McCollum, he's still been working those second team center. Hoffman has not gotten as many center reps as I maybe anticipated that he would. We'll watch for it in this Buffalo game, but McCollum is odd man out.
All right, I think McCollum might have some trade value to him, so keep an eye on that. And here's something else I think for people to keep in their back of their head. Not that you want to ever get in that situation. Didn't a couple of years ago Dylan Cook get some reps during the preseason at guard?
A little bit. His first year in Pittsburgh, he did get, I think, some left guard work. So in a true pinch, it's been a long time since he played it. You could probably play Cook inside if you had to.
All right. I just want to get that out there.
Darnell Washington somewhere along the offensive line. I don't know. You could. It happened. I always loved the story. The Falcons had a tight end, Levine Tololo, and he had to play offensive tackle in a game because the Falcons got that short many moons ago. All right, defensive line here.
All right, so just to recap, the only difference we have here on the offensive side of football is I have them keeping Travis Homer on the 53, and you do not.
Correct. And I still think, what is the reason? Is Travis Homer one of your best 53? Would you call him one of the best 53 on your roster right now?
Man, he's a good special teams player, so yeah.
McCarthy had some illuminating comments about that third running back spot. He talked about that he wants guys who can do more than just be a great special teamer, and they have to provide value on their side of the football. But he also conceded that last running back spot will probably come down to special teams value. So kind of talked both ways on that one. So I think if a third running back is kept on the 53, it will be Homer. Although Lou Nichols does have good teams value. He's a 4-phase guy, just has not worked as the PP the way that Homer has.
All right, who has a legitimate shot of making that's already penciled in on the 53 that could potentially give you the personal protector snaps? Skowronek?
No, he's a gunner. He's played,
but he could,
PP.
Right?
They used him there for a game last year when they had the injury to Killebrew. Obviously you can put somebody new in and rep it. Jack Henderson didn't take reps in training camp. He's been doing it in the preseason action.
Right, but he's not going to make the 53.
Right. I'm just saying, it could be a variety. But you want somebody with some size. So let me look down the list here. Yes, in terms of guys who could do it, Homer, Skowronek, and then you're going to go to probably safeties, Spears Jennings, Jenkins. Those are the guys you'd be looking at.
Okay. All right. So we differ by 1. You have them keeping 25, right? Offensive players, and I have them keeping 26. All right.
All right. Let's go to defense. Now we do have the same number and same name of defensive linemen, keeping 6: Hayward, Harmon, Benton, Black, Joseph Day, and the rookie Gabriel Rubio. I think Rubio is inside the bubble, but still fighting Dean Lowry for that last spot.
I agree 100% on that. That's where I'm at. And obviously I'm hoping Sebastian Joseph Day is ready for week 1.
Yeah, I think there was a report he was dressed yesterday, but working with some of the injured guys. And so you do wonder, going back to Porter and flies in the ointment, what guy could go to IR? What, God, hopefully Dylan Everett doesn't go to IR. I guess he was practicing. I have to go back and check the report myself, but you do wonder one of these injured guys that might trip you up in terms of, oh, I didn't know he was going to go to IR and that could create a roster spot. But I think Joseph Day will hopefully be able to avoid. All right, at outside linebacker, chalk here, really wire to wire. Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and Sawyer.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else is even close to adding to that group. It'll be these four and these four only, and has been the case for a while.
Similar clarity at inside linebacker, both keeping the same five: Queen, Wilson, Roberts, Holcomb, and Bruner.
All right, the only question there, but I mean, if you look at the special team snaps of the way they've been divvied up and all like that, I guess the player that comes into the more question here would potentially be Holcomb. Especially with the addition of Roberts. It still feels like that five's going to be the five at this point. I could entertain the notion that maybe Holcomb is a guy that you try to get to the practice squad. But I mean, just looking at the way they've utilized early in the games, the special teamers, and especially with a new special teams coordinator and all, man, it feels like Holcomb and Bruner are going to be part of special teams and a big part of them, and thus both of them on the 53.
It was a little interesting. Holcomb played longer into the Jets game than Bruner did, which I don't know if that suggests anything to you, but Holcomb signing a 2-year deal just feels like he's going to make it. But if you wanted to create a list of, oh, that's a surprising cut, I guess maybe Holcomb would be on that list.
Yeah, especially since the return of Roberts, right?
Right, exactly. But both keeping Holcomb for now. At quarterback, keeping the same 6 corners as well. Porter, Dean. Well, I mean, do you have Ramsey as a corner or a safety? Okay, you have him as a corner too. So yeah, Porter, Dean, Ramsey, Samuel, Eccles, and Everett as your 6.
Yeah, and hopefully health dictates that all these guys are ready to go. And then obviously, as I wrote at the top of this, again, just to remind everybody that I brought it up, are we 100% sure that Porter is going to come off the active PUP list by Sunday? You would think that is guaranteed to happen, right? What if it doesn't? I'm just saying. Hopefully, we see Eccles and Everett both play some Thursday night. Ramsey obviously returned from the active PUP list this past week, so while he might not play Thursday night, he should be ready to go for the opener. So I think this 6 is a 6.
Yeah, the injury just makes it murky where if somebody does go to reserve PUP or injured reserve, and how Pittsburgh handles that too. You have those 2 open IR spots that you can put guys to automatically without having to carry them for an extra day. But Pittsburgh didn't fully utilize that last year. They used one of those 2 spots initially with Corey Trace Jr. They kept Will Howard for an additional day and then put him on IR. So technically, they kept 4 quarterbacks to begin the roster process last year before then, of course, transferring Howard to IR. So there are some discretion and some possibilities teams could take there.
All right, but as we go into, and obviously it can change a lot in the last preseason game here, it doesn't feel like there's any definite players, at least the ones that we're considering on the 53 to go to IR.
Yeah, there's no, oh, this guy's definitely going to go on there. The only one we could sit there and say is Dante Kent is very likely to go from active PUP to reserve PUP, but that's not going to impact our roster predictions in any form or fashion. But you never know. With Everett, with Joseph Day, without really good clarity on their health situations, you're just wondering a little bit. And then, of course, Porter will watch as well.
All right.
All right, at safety, this is the other difference that we had on our roster, Dave, aside from running back. I'm keeping 4 in Brisker, Elliott, Jenkins, and Spears-Jennings. You're going 3 with Brisker, Elliott, and Spears-Jennings.
Yep. I think Robert Spears-Jennings has represented himself well. I think he's a good special teamers on top of it. I think he's everything that you hoped he would be as a late round draft pick. Not that I think that Jenkins has done anything to lose his spot, but I think Jenkins maybe is a guy that you can terminate his contract and get him to the practice squad. And if you need to elevate him, you elevate him. I just think Robert Spears-Jennings being the draft pick gets the nod over him.
Yeah, I think Spruce Jennings has played well enough to make the 53. He deserves to make it. I think he is still a true bubble player that might get caught up in the roster math. I kept Jenkins and Spruce Jennings because I think that they're going to want a vet to back up the team for week one. They don't want Spruce Jennings to be, one snap away. You could move Ramsey around, but the math gets complicated there, especially with the health issues otherwise at cornerback. So they want a veteran. Jenkins has played well. In your view, would you be elevating Jenkins for the Falcons game? I know you said you could, and you could, but is that your plan with Jenkins
No.
or no? I see. I just can't see them having that thin depth and that youth behind, Brisker and Elliott.
All right. So if I were, I just don't know of who I would put on the inactive list as a sixth inactive, especially if I'm carrying four quarterbacks and two of those quarterbacks are going to be on the inactive list. I need four more players to be inactive if I were to elevate him. One of them obviously would be an offensive lineman, but where do you go from there? One of your wide receivers is likely to be inactive. I know
Mhm.
people don't like me talking about it, but one of Roman Wilson or Jeremy Bernard certainly seem destined to be inactive to week one, but it still leaves me with trying to figure out, I think, two more if I was to elevate Jenkins there.
Well, there's a health component too. Who's going to be healthy and ready for this game? We can't guarantee that with guys like Everett if they do avoid injured reserve. So my point being though is I can't see them having, you don't want Spears Jennings, even though he's had a nice summer, to be one snap away from potentially playing. So I think they want a vet back there. It's why they brought in Savage. It's why they brought in a couple of vets this summer in Jenkins and Mukwamu, and Jenkins has played well. So that's why I wanted to. I think Spears Jennings should be kept, and so I hope he makes the 53. But I had Jenkins too, and that's why I played the roster math with Homer instead, because I think you can more easily float Homer and then even potentially Lou Nichols as one of your elevations. You get three of those per year with a guy, so that's something you could kind of float for a while.
All right, you sure seem to be married to the whole idea of the Homer thing. Are you going to stay married to it after this final preseason game?
We'll see. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, the health of the team will dictate a little bit here, but I think it makes sense. I mean, you could also do this with Jenkins. You could do this with Robert Tunyon. You could do this with a bunch of veterans. Pittsburgh has done it before. But tell me, the point is, why would you not yo-yo one of these veterans if you're going to keep four quarterbacks to make sure that you can keep a Robert Spears Jennings? Why would you not play
If
the
there
yo-yo
was
game?
one guy if there was one guy on my latest 53 that I would seriously consider doing the yo-yo with, it would be Robert Tunyon.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you could pick any of them. Really, the criteria for a yo-yo guy is he has to be a vet, can't be subject to waivers, needs to be on a 1-year contract without any guaranteed money or the minimum amount of
Well, even the
guaranteed.
guarantee, they've worked around that before too, and turned around and given the same one, the same minimum signing bonus.
Right. It just ideally you don't want to do it twice. You
Right.
don't want to have to. It's a little less complicated for a guy without a signing bonus like a Travis Homer, which is why I went Homer ultimately. And then somebody that obviously would have very minimal NFL interest. You wouldn't really think I'm just going to poach this guy. He's going to have offers to go sign to a roster right away. So that's kind of the thought. I mean, they do this basically every single year with a guy, especially on that initial cut down list. I don't know who it was last year, though. I'm trying to see maybe who it was last season. I think Chuck Clark and James Pierre look like they were cut last year. Does that sound right to you, Dave?
Sounds right with Clark, I think.
Trying to look at our roster cut down tracker last year. I'm just looking at my notes because again, they kept the four quarterbacks initially, and I guess that was because if you put the guys on IR Sunday, they automatically count as designated to return, two of your allotted eight, and so you have a little more flexibility if you wait instead. Yeah, it was Pierre and Clark were cut last year, and I think they circled back for week one. So this year, the examples would be Jenkins or Tunyon or Travis Homer.
All right, and maybe even potentially Holcomb for. I mean, yeah, he's one of those kind of questionable guys as well
Well,
too.
he had a 2-year deal with a little bit of guaranteed money, I
Yeah,
assume.
yeah, you would have a little bit. I think. What would his dead money be right off the shoot if you did that? Hold on a
Yeah.
minute here.
I mean, there's really well, I know you're just spitballing ideas, but
Right.
to me, there's no reason to do Holcomb when you could do the others, and it's a lot cleaner without any dead money and just easier contractually.
There would be, yeah, and you just signed him to a 2-year deal this offseason. There would actually be 312 $312,500 dead this year, and then it would create another $312,500 dead in 2027. So yeah, the likelihood, if you cut him, you're cutting him because you don't need a period.
Right,
You know?
right. And then they're going to cut Malik Harrison and free up money at inside
Right.
linebacker that way. So I'm predicting a yo-yo of some sort because it
Okay.
happens basically every year. So why not predict one? I'm taking a guess of which guy it's going to be, but I think someone's going to get it.
All right, I'll tell you, barring injury, with any of these guys potentially, and then obviously the Joey Porter Jr. situation, right now, something's going to have to happen for me to change from my 53 right now.
All right. Good deal. So who was number 53 and who was number 54 on your roster prediction?
I mean, 53 and 54. Let me look at my practice squad list here. Jenkins is right up there as 54. I would say probably then Spears Jennings would be 53, I guess.
Okay, so it came down to one of those two safeties, and it would make sense to then keep Spears Jennings, who was subject to waivers, where you could float Jenkins instead because he's a vested guy that would not be subject to waivers.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I didn't find myself laboring too much trying to put this together this morning.
Yeah, even with four quarterbacks, it did not feel as daunting as it might otherwise would. For me, Spears Jennings was 53, and then Travis Homer was 54. If I had one
Okay.
extra spot, I would have then put Homer. But and to be clear, I'm not going to the Falcons game with just two running backs. Homer would be elevated. You'll have the third running back. This is just a different way to go about it.
All right. All right. So
All right.
we differed on Homer and Jenkins.
Jenkins. Yep, that was it. I feel like what is Ross's? Does anyone on the Depot team have any sort of like crazy different construction? I feel like most roster predictions are pretty much aligned, which I'm sure happens a lot. Usually it's only down to one or two players, but I feel like this is all pretty we're all pretty simpatico.
Yeah, it feels like it's cut its own self out here over the course of the training camp and preseason here. Let's look at Ross's real
Yeah,
quick here.
Ross I think is identical to yours. You can double check it. I'm going to look at Josh's too that went up a day or two ago, and just to see if he has anything different. But I get the sense, and obviously we're not monolith. Like people can have their own predictions, but I think even outside of the Depot ecosystem, it's been I think pretty much the same as well.
Let's look at Ross's here real quick. He has the four quarterbacks. He has the same three running backs. He has the same wide receivers. He has the same tight ends, fullbacks. He has the same offensive linemen. So I'm the same with him there. We have the same defensive linemen, same outside linebackers, same inside linebackers, same corners, and the same safeties, and then obviously the same. So yeah, mine and his ended up being the same.
Josh's is a little bit different. He's got 7 defensive linemen. He's keeping Asasi Otomewa and Rubio. He's leaving off those like us, Dean Lowry, and then at safety he left off Spears Jennings and kept Jenkins.
Okay, there has to be another difference in there somewhere, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm sorry. He did cut Cole Holcomb actually.
Okay.
So that was a good call. That was the other difference there. So that one's a little bit different. So yeah, I feel like
I think across the board, there's 50 that feel like a constant between all of us here, right?
Yeah, I mean, Josh's has a couple more differences, but I would say even probably more than 50, 52 basically, and where it comes down to, okay, you're going to keep Spears Jennings or Jenkins or which defensive lineman. I mean, it's like, to me, 51 to 52 are pretty much aligned, which always makes me nervous because I feel like, what are we missing when we're all in alignment and just, oh, this is what will happen? We always get thrown a curveball, and I'm always wondering what that curveball is going to be.
Might it be Joey Porter Jr.? I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, we'll know by Sunday. That's for sure. There.
If we
Okay.
knew, it wouldn't be a curveball.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Where to from here? Preseason game number 3.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of went over that, but any other final thoughts there for this preseason game? Any other battles that you'll be watching?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of eyes obviously should be on the young quarterbacks. They will be. I think that's an obvious thing right there. I think Rubio and Spears Jennings are 2 to watch. I think will anybody other than Travis Homer and Jack Henderson get personal protector reps in this. Will Everett, Sebastian Joseph Day, Jennings Dunker, Maxi Honachor play. Is Peyton Wilson's injury enough to keep him held out of this game? I don't think either of us are expecting DK Metcalf or Pittman to play. Can Roman Wilson have a his best preseason game to date? That's something else to watch in this one. Oh, what else within all this? Weegan, obviously, you want to see a better game out of him returning to football. Can Broderick Jones represent himself better than he did in this last game? Will Brock Hoffman be the next guy in at center behind Zach Frazier to give him a few more snaps in this game, with him potentially being the backup center in this game? Oh, I think we beat it up there. I think
Yeah.
those are really the main things to look for in this game, other than
Right.
health.
Yeah, no, that's pretty comprehensive. I think that looks at it well. I have an article for midnight. I think it'll be about not the guys making the 53 and pushing for that. What about the practice squad too? Mike McCarthy's talked so much about. He keeps saying 68 guys,
I
which
think it's because he's not counting on the international players. The only way I think of it is, look, Julius is going to be international. He's not going to lose that, so he's not technically a player that they'll have to choose from throughout the season.
yeah, but even without that, that's a 16-man practice squad, and 53 and 16 is 69, not 68. So I don't know why he keeps saying 68. But the point being that he considers the practice squad and the depth is really important. So who's fighting for
Well,
the practice?
53 and 16 is 68. Doesn't he keep saying 68?
No, 53 plus 16 is 69.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, so he keeps saying 68.
My bad.
I think he's kind of on maybe some other older. Did they ever do 15 practice squad? I don't know. But regardless, he wants the depth to matter, and he's focused about the entire organization, not just keeping your 53, but all the guys on the roster and in your building on the practice field, which will be 70 when you include Wilshoff, assuming that he's kept 17 in the practice squad, 53 on your roster. So
I can figure out the salary cap, but I can't add 53 and 16. Go figure.
Listen, it's the duality of man. But who are fighting for those practice squad spots? I have an article for midnight on that. Jack Driscoll, Doug Nestor, the veteran Driscoll, the younger guy Nestor, both versatile. Nestor more flexibility. You'll be watching for that. A second wide receiver, you would expect Max Hurlman to make it. Who else could join him? Brandon Smith, his health has unfortunately hampered his process. So Wentz and Powell and Winstead, or an outside guy obviously could be added. The safety battle, I thought Castro and Henderson was getting interesting. Castro in the boot is unfortunate. We'll see what the severity is there. And then some good DBs. I think Slaughter's had a good summer. I did a video today on Devin Boykin. I think he's had some good preseason play. Deshaun Jameson has a bit of experience and some good speed. So a lot of guys trying to fight for those final P squad spots too.
What if? Let me just throw this out there. What if Joey Porter Jr. starts the regular season on reserve PP? I don't think it's going to happen, but what if it does? Who is the next corner that you would put on the 53 if you were to still go with 6 corners on your 53-man roster? Who is the next corner with the most likeliest chance should Joey Porter Jr. indeed start on reserve PP?
Yeah, I mean, to do an Alex thing, I don't know if they would keep a 6 corner. They might use that spot elsewhere, but who is like the next man up at corner? I mean, like I said, there's a good battle right now. I mean, like Slaughter's had some good reps. I mean, I think, Jameson's played a little bit in the NFL. My inclination would be to go Jameson, but
Mine would be to go
open.
Slaughter. I think Slaughter is an entertaining young kid, and I hope he exits to the practice squad. I think I'm interested to see him play Thursday night.
Same. So yeah, that could go in a couple different ways. My guess is they would not keep an additional corner. They would use that spot for, in my scenario, Travis Homer, putting him officially on the 53. But yeah, point taken.
All right. Okay, shall we get to some emails here to close out the show?
Sure, let's do that. And as you said, close out today's show.
All right, Antonio Crypto writes in, James Campen. While everyone was initially excited about the James Campen hiring, I was admittedly more dubious. While it's early, I haven't exactly had those fears put to rest. I'm not thrilled by how much he has guys shifting around. He says, I have some friends who are Panthers fans and weren't exactly sad to see him go. I think does he mean? Yeah. I went back and wanted to see how Campen's lines did post Green Bay, and the results aren't exactly sterling. And he's got them all listed here by PFF ranking from 2019 through 2023. He says, given how the O-line seemed like it finally started to gel last season, are you both still very confident in Campen? Maybe I'm being over dramatic. I understand what we've seen through the preseason so far hasn't been what a lot of people expected maybe it to be at this point, but they are moving guys a lot around a lot, good or bad, depending on what you think of that. I'm not ready to pass judgment on James Campen, the job he's doing, and the play of the offensive line through 2 preseason games.
Yeah, there's always an adjustment going from a guy like Pat Meyer, who was there for several seasons, and switching to a new coach with his own technique and philosophy and approach. And there can be some growing pains associated with that. Campen, I think, is a quality coach. I know that maybe his resume in recent years was not sterling. He got bounced around. I mean, he was a part of so many coaching staffs that got fired. He was one and done with the Chargers and the Texans. That's because the head coach gets fired and the assistants have to go elsewhere too. But I think Campen's a quality coach. With the mixing and matching, it is, I think, a really interesting conversation because you're trying to find that balance. You want to mix and match because injuries can happen, and you want guys to be position flexible and versatile and to play with different people because you never know how a season is going to go. But how much is too much, and what is the right answer? There is no, black and white. Just do X, Y, and Z in terms of your mixing and matching. I do wonder because McCarthy moved these guys around so much, not just in games, but even within lines during training camp and practice. The front five has not really gotten to work together consistently a ton because guys have rotated around so much. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm a little less panic on the starters. Like I had that video the other day because I think they play a little better than people think. And once you start game planning and start really kind of settling in, then things can be better. So I'm not hitting the panic button just yet.
Me neither. Mark Richards writes in about JPJ's contract. Dave, I've been a listener to the podcast since it basically got started 2008-ish for me, and you've always provided amazing coverage and insight. Alex, you and Dave, you have made Dave even better. I really appreciate what you provide for us with the Steeler info to consume, even though I rarely email. My question, do you think that Christian Gonzalez returning to work will nudge Joey Porter Jr. in the same direction? The team has a history of negotiating more urgently when a player conforms in this way. One X I remember is Hines Ward number of years ago. Have a great day. I do not think anything a guy does on another team, such as Christian Gonzalez, will have any impact on any decision on Joey Porter Jr. I understand the question related to it, but look, even Christian Gonzalez is still waiting for his deal at this point here. So I don't think I don't think they give a crap other than about Christian Gonzalez, other than what he ultimately might sign for here. So I do find it interesting, though, as we talked about, and as I think Garofalo or one of them pointed out there, that boy, they sure didn't have a problem with Nick Herbig kind of starting the early stages of his hold in, if you will, and then giving him the contract there. The short answer to your question is no. I don't think Christian Gonzalez returning to work will nudge JPJ in the same direction. And that's the question.
Yeah, I don't think Porter's posture is going to change based off of that. I wonder if it's influencing Pittsburgh's style. And yeah, the Herbig, how do you, if you're the Steelers, the point on Herbig, because I had forgotten that he did not, he basically held in during OTAs and that first day of minicamp. And so how can Pittsburgh go to Porter and say, go practice when Herbig didn't practice before his deal, other than to say that Porter's missed more time and that Herbig got his deal in the spring, would have all the training camp to work and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's maybe a double standard.
All right, James Constantino writes in, one quarterback too many. Longtime listener, longtime emailer here. What is the record of the 2026 Steelers team when you say we are out of it? It's time to bench Rodgers and play one of the rookies. He says, second, can you help me with a little logic? If you can't win the Super Bowl with Rodgers, you sure as hell cannot win it with Rudolph. So why wouldn't you play the young guys, especially with the leeway of a new coaching staff? This is so elementary that there must be something else. And he has in parentheses financial causing this absurd quarterback dance. He says, P.S. Alex, thank you for using fewer instead of less when talking about numbers. You make this retired English teacher happy. Love and peace, James. All right. I'm glad you are satisfied. I know I'm bad with basic English and evidently basic math as well, too. There's probably been times where did not use fewer and use less when talking about numbers. I apologize for that, James. Let's go back to his main question here. What record did the Steelers team have when you say we're out of it? It's time to bench Rodgers and play one of the rookies. I think we got a similar kind of question on the live stream the other night. You do that when it's over, when mathematically I think the Steelers pull that plug when it's over, when it's officially over, officially eliminated. I don't think you'll see them do it before then. Now, obviously, if you get in there and Rodgers is it just looks ugly, 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 ugly. Maybe you pull the plug, but I think outside of that, I don't think you'll see Rodgers pulled for one of the young quarterbacks until it's officially mathematically eliminated.
I agree. I think mathematical elimination would be that dividing line, the only one where Pittsburgh would throw in the towel because the towel's already been thrown in for them. So that's my stance. And yeah, I still have to Google it sometimes, but fewer is used for things that can be counted, like games. So fewer games. Less is used for things that cannot be counted, like pain. Like if a doctor asks you, do you have less pain? That's when you use less and fewer. So that's the English lesson for the day.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Harvelcheck. All right. If you can't win the Super Bowl with Rodgers, you sure as hell cannot win it with Rudolph. So why wouldn't you play the young guys, especially with the leeway of the new coaching staff? I get it. But the Steelers probably feel otherwise. They obviously would be keeping Rudolph if indeed that happens, because they think that if Rodgers goes down, they think they could still compete for a Super Bowl with Rudolph. Right or wrong, that's the way they probably feel.
Yeah, it's not about Mason Rudolph go win us a Super Bowl. It's Mason Rudolph go win us a game or go finish out a game so we can keep our season on track. And they believe that Rodgers is capable of leading them to a Super Bowl if everything else comes together. So that's their mindset. I understand why people would disagree with that, but that's how Pittsburgh is thinking. So Rudolph's not about go win it all, but go win us a game to keep our season and all of our hopes or dreams on the same track.
All right, Bill Ewan. This one's titled Juju. I love Juju, but he is way past his prime. But a vet to run the slot until Bernard is ready sounds like the only thing Juju can do at this point. I think I'd rather have Juju than Roman at this point. Just curious on your thoughts. I swear I'm not living in 2019. Give me a slower vet that runs the right routes instead of a speedy guy who can't be trusted. Look, I get that. Now, I think it's important to imagine that Juju, when he was cut by who just cut him?
Giants.
The Giants, there was an injury designation with that. Now, I think for clerical reasons, because he probably is still having issues with one of those knees. There obviously wasn't a settlement in there. Not that Juju would take one, because if he did have a settlement, then whatever that settlement is linked for, he has to miss that time. So it's not surprising that he was given the injury designation and not a settlement. He still probably feels like he's at least healthy enough to play. The thing is, okay, let's say you did sign him as the Steelers. He's not going to be an every down player for you. He's probably going to be more of a third down guy. It wouldn't probably be an awful option to have run alongside and help with the development of Bernard. How much better is he on one knee to be trusted would he be an upgrade over Roman Wilson? I get the premise here, and if that's the best that you have out there, oh man, Juju's just such a limited player. But could you trust him more? Could he at least be that third down guy to get you those tough yards on third downs? I get it. I don't think they'd go that way, but on the flip side, I understand why we are getting the question about it.
I understand the rationale of getting somebody that can be trusted, but no to Juju. How many more of these guys do you need? You have Freiermuth, you have Pittman, you have Washington, you have the backs. I mean, well, you need guys that can do more than dirty work. You need guys that can create big plays. And Juju's knees are just shot. His knees are getting drained each week in Pittsburgh, and that was years ago since his last down with the Steelers. I mean, his knees are
How much is he going to
gonzo.
be able to practice?
Yeah,
And how many
in a new system.
games? How
Yeah,
many games can you pencil him in to miss? And
no, it's just nope, nope, no, thank you, no circumstance. It's not I like Juju. I mean, he's certainly a polarizing player to some, but I never felt like he was a bad guy or did anything that radically wrong. But no, it's just that the time has passed.
all right, Taylor Carpenter, David Knox just got finished with the All-22 for the Jets game and came away feeling a little better about our young quarterbacks than I did watching the game live. He says, not great, still a C performance at best, but a little better. With McCarthy saying both young quarterbacks will play the preseason finale and likely no Rodgers or Rudolph, had me thinking, is it possible that Rudolph is not playing in the final 2 preseason games to protect him from injury for a trade? He says, I know there's a ton of speculation that the Steelers keep 4 quarterbacks, but when I tried to get the roster down to 53, keeping 4, the numbers don't work. Give me your percentage chance that Rudolph gets traded. Number 2, what would the young guns need to do in the preseason game for the organization to feel comfortable in trading Rudolph? I feel your pain, Taylor Carpenter. I definitely see where you're coming from, and I've struggled with this 4 quarterback thing, and finally screamed uncle here in my latest roster prediction. What is the percent chance that Rudolph gets traded? I don't think it's 0. I'm
I
gonna
agree.
I'm gonna steal your line. I don't think it's 0. Uh, I think there's a greater chance of Joey Porter Jr. being traded than I do Mason Rudolph at this point.
Mm.
I wouldn't have definitely thought that several weeks ago. I guess that sort of answers that question. What would the young guns need to do in a preseason finale game for the organization to feel comfortable trading Rudolph? I don't know if there is at this point. I don't know if there's enough either one of those could do.
Yeah, that might be the answer. I mean, obviously, just play unbelievably well. It's a very simple but logical response to that. But yeah, I don't know if it's anything that they could do. It would have to be a team giving Pittsburgh a great offer for Rudolph that they just can't pass up. That might be the only way to get there.
All right, I got one more I want to get to because I think it's a good question too. And longtime listener Janae writes in, thanks again for all the work you do for us hardcore Steeler fans. A few questions based on latest 53-man roster prediction. Now this came in 3 days ago, so we obviously have another set of roster predictions just in. But let's read it just the same. Good for Janae? Who are your 5 inactives? This feels as difficult as getting to 53. LOL. That is a good question. Number 2, what is the likelihood of cutting Tanyan and hoping to place him on the practice squad? While he has played well, he doesn't provide a lot in special teams, and McCarthy is expected to use more 11 personnel. Number 3, for Alex, assuming you don't have Homer on the final 53, who replaces all of his special team snaps? I think Alex has sort of answered that one. Let's knock that one out because you would elevate Homer from the practice squad in week 1 to play his same special teams role there. So I think we can knock that one out right here.
Homer would still be playing, to be very clear in my scenario.
All right. How realistic is it to cut Weege place on practice squad and then call him up? Could they alternate call-ups between Hurlman, assuming he makes it to the practice squad? He says, I'm struggling to keep Weege on on 53 if his only role is punt returner, kick returner, giving his performance to date? Lastly, number 5, can we expect more starters, key backups, i.e. Peyton Wilson, Herbig, Samuels, Eccles, Warren, Dowdle, to play more on special teams? Let's take that last one first. I think to some degree, you're going to see Wilson on special teams, maybe just 1 or 2 units. I think you might see the same with Herbig. Samuels, if he's on special teams, is to be back there as another kick returner. Eccles, probably a gunner for Eccles, right? Or vice.
Yeah, he'll be a vice. He'll be a starting gunner if healthy. It'll be Skoranek and Eccles as your gunners week 1.
All right, Warren. Or no, I mixed up Samuels there. Samuels is probably not going to play much of any on special teams. Warren obviously would be back there in kick return. I'll read them out of order here. Dowdle, no. There. So you're going to see a few of these guys like Wilson, Herbig, Eccles, Warren probably have some special teams roles in here.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
All right. As far as the Weegian, we kind of addressed some of that, I think, a little bit. I don't think Weegian's going to get cut. I think there's like a 1% chance he is cut. Alex, I think, gives a little bit more weight to that, but even Alex has Weegian on his 53-man roster. We answered the Homer question. Let's go back to number 2. What is the likelihood of cutting Tanyan and placing him on the practice squad? I think there's plausibility to that.
Yeah, I've mentioned him along the veteran yo-yos. I mean, you could do it with Jenkins, with Tunyon, or with Homer. I think Tunyon just had a good summer, and so just makes a team off of that. There's not a huge. I mean, his contract, I assume, had no signing bonus. I don't know if you can check that. I don't know if he had any sort of signing bonus whenever he inked with a team in the spring. But
Who?
Robert Tunyon, did he have any signing bonus of any level? I know it was probably a veteran benefit contract, but those can carry up to 187,000 and change signing bonus. So I don't know if I'm looking at Lowry. Tunyon received any bonus in that deal.
I don't know why my sheet won't load all of a sudden. This has me concerned.
But yeah, you could do the same with any of those veteran guys, and I think Pittsburgh wants to use all the tools at their disposal so you can keep a rookie like a Spears Jennings, not subject him to waivers. Would he be claimed?
No signing bonus for Tunyon.
Okay, so yeah, you could do the same, but just makes sense on that off chance of a young guy getting claimed. Go put the vet through instead.
Okay, back to the first question, which is probably the best one of the bunch. Based on each of our 53-man rosters and expected elevations, in your case, with Homer, name, in my case, it would be 5 inactives.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, it would be 6 inactives there. I will give you mine based on my latest 53. Howard, Aller, Dunker, I'm going to piss people off here. Bernard. How many is that?
Wait. That is Howard 4. That's 4. Howard, Aller, Dunker, Bernard. Need a 5th.
My 5th would be, let me go back to my roster prediction real quick here.
Who will it be?
It will be...
You want me to give you my 6, and then you can give
Gabriel Rubio, I guess, or Everett. So one of those two would have to effectively be my 5th.
Here's my 6. And I'm doing 6 because I'm anticipating in my world Homer getting elevated. Howard, Aller, Dunker. Those are pretty much obvious. The other 3, Everett, Robert Spears Jennings, and for number 6, Cole Holcomb.
Okay.
Cole Holcomb gets
all right,
sacked.
So you have all 6 wide receivers dressing then.
I do. Obviously, you could do an inactive for one of those 2 guys, but I think to start the year, they would both dress.
All right. I think that's an important part of roster construction, too, that
Sure.
People just easily, willy-nilly throw out the 53 but they don't think about who the inactives will be, especially right out.
But obviously, health depends a lot, and we can't predict that exactly for how week 1 is going to go. So, and with Holcomb, I mean, that's the last one on my list there. I think Nowakowski can wear a lot of those hats, even though they had been on the first team punt team together. So I've not done the whole mapping out every special teams unit, and that maybe would change something a little bit in terms of if I had enough people to plug in. But that's my initial thought.
All right. We got through the email questions there. I think we covered a lot in this one, and we will be back on Friday to discuss the preseason finale against the Bills, and I suppose start getting into injuries, who was injured. We'll obviously cover what the players and coaches said after the game, and start making our way towards the final cut down, which will be on Sunday. Will we have any Joey Porter Jr. news to discuss by Friday? We'll see when it comes to that as well. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. Until Friday, enjoy the game Thursday night, folks. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.